Great. This is a photo, and it's by Adam Chasey. And I wanted, we have, if you're interested in doing this, it's a group of people who take gorgeous plant photos, such as this one, and use them as reference photos in Calflora. So people who are learning about rare plants, native plants, invasive plants, use these photos as reference photos from the taxon report pages, which I'll get into a little bit later. So if that's something that interests you, to be able to pick your photos, other people's photos, good photos to use as reference photos, do let me know that as well. All right, so first I'm going to go over some basics about Calflora, our team, what Calflora is, and then get into the details of what I think it is that you want to learn about. And if I miss something, let me know. This is our team. And as Eddie mentioned, I have an MS in GIS, which stands for Geographic Information Science. And I've learned a lot about plants working with Calflora and also Calypsi before that. But I'm not a botanist. So tomorrow, if you're able to join our hike tomorrow, which I hope you all are, it's at noon. Well, Eddie maybe can go over those details later. You know, I'm not a botanist, so I don't try and fake it. I'll be learning also along with all of you as we observe plants in real life, not just virtually tomorrow and then virtually tonight. All right, so here's what I think you want to know about. Please type into the chat if I missed something. Most of you are interested in selecting plants for a garden. That's all kind of the green one, landscape design, nursery information, shade, drought gardens, that kind of thing. One of you was interested in the effect of hot spells on ranges of native flora. Some of you had some questions about native plants, local plants, and CNPS fire followers. One person asked about exporting data out of Calflora, which is really cool and easy to do in lots of different formats. No, two people asked about exporting. Identifying wildflowers, one person asked about that. Using the mobile app for adding plant observations and photos, and I know Eddie and Noreen are also interested in that, and then how to use it from your phone. So in the chat above the survey are the links to the Android and iOS phone app. It's called Observer Pro. And if you do want to add data to Calflora, I mean, you're welcome to just use Calflora to learn about plants. That's great. That's wonderful. But if you want to enhance what's available, photos and information, adding your observations is really helpful way for Calflora to know more about what grows wild in the state of California. All right, I didn't see anybody type anything else into the chat about something I'd missed here on what you want to learn about tonight. So based on this list, I'm going to go over Calflora basics, learning from each other using Calflora, map layers, the planting guide, what grows here, iNaturalist, and then your questions. First, Calflora basics. What is Calflora? What is that thing called Calflora? We're a 501c3 nonprofit plant database. We provide information on wild California plants for conservation, education, and appreciation. The database contains over 10,000 native and introduced species, 3.5 million plant location observations. Most of those are points. There are some as of about 2012. If you have an area, you can log it as a polygon or a line. For instance, you know, some trees along a trail or some plants along a trail or along a river could be a line. We have 30,000 relationships between old and new plant names. As you know, plant names change for better or for worse. It's really hard to keep track of all those name changes. And we crosswalk is the verb, old names to new names. And so that whatever name you're using, whether it's the most current name according to the Jepsoni flora or it's an older name, you can find it. We are not the name authority, nor do we want to be. We refer to Jepson eFlora as the authority on names and on plant names in California, and then also CNPS. And every now and again they disagree, but for the most part they agree. And we also use USDA plants sometimes. 300,000 plant photos. Many of those are reference photos. I'll show you some more of those in a minute. Over 80,000 unique e-visitors each month. It's about 2,600 unique visitors each day to the website. As an online tool during the COVID, we've had a pretty big spike in visitors, which is, I guess, good, you know. And so that number is I don't know, like 10% different, higher than it used to be. And then about 4,000 active data contributors. And you also can be an active data contributor. The database contains all 10,000 native and introduced species, all wild plant species in the state. And where I mentioned this to Eddie earlier, we are a data aggregator. So if you use iNaturalist, if you submit your specimens to CCH, NRDB, EDD maps, we have a feed from a lot of different other sources. So CCH stands for California Consortium of Herbaria, and then iNaturalist I sometimes call iNat. And the specimens from CCH and then the observations from iNaturalist, which are filtered, come into Calflora. So you get a really full picture, a more complete picture about where this species or subspecies or variety that you're interested in exists in the state, because we pull all those sources together. Now, I'm going to talk more about iNaturalist toward the end of my presentation, but the data feed from iNaturalist is heavily filtered because we don't want everything from iNaturalist, and not everything from iNaturalist is good data. So our algorithm filters out a lot of stuff. So when we're looking at iNaturalist data in Calflora, I will talk more about what we filter, why we filter, and how that is going for us. Debbie asked about Calscape, so I'll add that to my list, and the difference between Calscape and Calflora. Calscape is part of CNPS, and but it's cool and useful also. So I'll talk a little bit about that. Thanks, Debbie. As important as what we are is what we're not, because of our name, the Cal. Some people think or just assume understandably, that we're part of the UC system, Cal Berkeley. We're not part of the UC system. We're not part of CalPhotos, which is actually part of the UC system. And because we serve so many CalPhotos, plant photos on Calflora, it's understandably confusing that, you know, we link directly to CalPhotos, but we are not CalPhotos. They generously share their photos with us. We are also not part of the California Invasive Plant Council. They're their own nonprofit. And we are not part of CNPS. CNPS is its own nonprofit. Although we love working with, CNPS, CalIPSI, CalPhotos, and UC. We're our own nonprofit since 2000. So we had our 20th anniversary last year. As the ED, I need to know where our funding is coming from, and here's a breakdown. About a third is fee-for-service work. So someone says, I need this feature in Calflora, build it for me, please. A third is from donations from individuals in CNPS chapters. Thank you for those. And then about a third is from Weed Manager, which is an invasive plant tracking and mapping system where you can create reports, you can track any treatments that you do on invasive plants, et cetera. And that's a subscription-based system for where some of our funding is coming from. This is an example of one of our popular taxon report pages. It's also more casually referred to as a plant profile. Each of the 10,000 wild plant species in the state has one taxon report page. So for instance, for this huckleberry, you'll see the scientific name, author or authors, common name or common names, brief description on what it is. This one has some pests and pathogens associated with it. We also built a pest and pathogen database. Bloom period, distribution by watershed, observation search, plant characteristics, and photos. Family, genus, photos from Calphotos, photos from Calflora, and there's even more. This is the top half of the page. Below here, there's even more information and hyperlinks about each species. And this, if you look at our Google statistics about what people are doing when they come to the Calflora website, by and large, the highest proportion of pages visited are taxon report pages. People are looking at distribution and information on these pages. I wanted to point out the native status. If it's an invasive or non-native species, that's noted on the taxon report page, including a link to Calypsy and the Calypsy rating. You can learn more about why it's rated that from the Calypsy website. And we have these red squares you'll see on the map. Each of those red squares is a quadrangle. And if it's showing up on the map, that means somebody reported it to be in the quadrangle, not exactly where, that's the blue dot, but somewhere in the quadrangle. And that's from one of our data feeds from Calypsy into the Calflora website, well, back and forth actually it goes, so that we have data reflecting quad level presence. I wanted to also point out below the distribution map are alternate names for any species that had been called other things according to the Jepson eFlora. That's what JEF stands for, Jepson eFlora. So there, for this specific aster, there are 3 alternate names. We don't call them synonyms because they're not always a one-to-one relationship. There's splitters, there's group clumpers, there's different ways of doing this crosswalking, but these are alternate names. In this case, it is actually a one-to-one relationship for this species. And then more information about lots of links to other helpful, including Calscape, Debbie. There's a link to Calscape to learn more about this species, this aster. Oh, wetlands and communities are also included on this taxon report page, where relevant. And nursery availability from this CNPLX, stands for California Native Plant Link Exchange. It's a mouthful. And on the CNPLX website, you can see, here's an example for this verbena, where the starts and seeds can be found. Annie's Annuals, Bay Natives, CNPS, oh, the Santa Clara Valley Nursery has this one, East Bay Wilds, Elkhorn, and then of course, you need to click through and see if that nursery is open and how to get it. Another gorgeous photo by Adam Chasey. All right, so that was Calflora Basics. Now I'm going to talk about learning from each other using Calflora. Other than Debbie's, I haven't seen any questions in the chat, but we're monitoring those, so please pipe up. There's lots of ways to learn from each other. Tomorrow, for instance, if you'd like to come on the hike, we can learn from each other in person and then learning from each other virtually. So if you submit your observations to the Calflora website or to iNaturalist or to any of these other sources that we serve, the data from whom we serve or from which we serve, then you can learn from each other that way. So for instance, here are just some key pieces of a taxon report page, including some CNPS chapter members, although Kathy Chambers is an East Bay member, but anyway, she's close by, for this wind poppy, and then also the distribution map. Oh, here, Patrick, he's a member of your chapter. He has some incredible photos in Calflora, and many of them are served on the Taxon report pages. And if you were curious to learn more about this false lily of the valley, you could contact him or look at more of his photos and read up on it. And then, of course, the distribution map. We have this scroll bar for the photos here, so you can scroll up and scroll down. I think 3-ish years ago, we had 4 static photos for every species as reference photos. And now we realize, there's so many great photos. We don't want to limit it to just 4. So we increase that. Ooh, this is the part where we ooh and ah. Here are a couple more. Another one from Patrick and then one from Jean. Gorgeous, gorgeous. Distribution, scientific name, common name. And if there's more than one common name, that's included here as well. Ron Vanderhoff, Beth Würzberg, Jake. I've met him and I just don't know how to pronounce his last name. Riggett, I think. Photos from them. This thorn apple. Oh, and Doug Allshouse, he's a member of your chapter. I'm not sure if he's able to come tonight, but he has made some incredible observations on San Bruno Mountain and elsewhere in the state, and some of his incredible photos are also reference photos. So here's an allium and a photo, and also from Steve Rosenthal. He's with CNPS Santa Clara Valley. Peter Warner, Diana Wall, the Southern Rock Bell. Ooh, ah. Okay, so now map layers. Within Calflora, there are lots of map layers to choose from. And I'm just going to go over a few of them that can help you dial in your query, dial in what it is that you're trying to figure out. We have a serpentine layer. And if you'd like, if you're into serpentine plants, you can use the serpentine layer to see what grows well or at all where there's serpentine in the state. And these colors, you'll see the red, the blue, and the purple indicate different eras of serpentine, so different times all a long time ago. And if you do go on a serpentine hike or something like that, and you add your observations to Calflora, then when somebody zooms in on one of these serpentine areas, they'll say, oh yeah, that plant is another one that does well in serpentine. We have a watershed layer, and as you zoom in on these watersheds, it goes to sub-watershed and sub-sub-watershed. And that, as you know, is useful for invasive plants, what's downstream, knowing what's in your watershed. Like you might even be working in a specific watershed and want to look at what's there. So watersheds and these layers, we make up some things, but we don't make up these layers. They come from different sources, and those sources are all, I'll show you where those, I'll actually write this down so I don't forget. The sources for our layers are different and sorted depending on which layer it is, but I'll show you how to get that information. Precipitation, of course, that's important for plants. And we have, this is from PRISM data up in Oregon, the precipitation layer. Protected area layer is probably my favorite layer. It's the one I use the most. If I'm gonna go, for instance, to Sunol, where we went last weekend, to go hiking, I open up protected layers, click on Sunol, and then it gives you that funny outline so you don't have to draw it yourself. And I say, what grows here? Like what grows in this exact area? And also what's blooming in January? What might we be likely to see that's blooming now? And then print out. You can either print it out or you can actually load that list onto your phone. But protected areas are useful also for national forest. They have that checkerboard border. And if you want to know what grows in an area and not have to worry about inside and outside that checkerboard, a protected layer is really useful. CNPS chapters. You know, Yerba Buena is the county and the chapter, so it's not so difficult. There's a county layer also on Calflora, so but for other CNPS chapters that aren't just one county, it's an easy clickable way to search and see what is in your CNPS chapter, what grows there, what blooms now, what's been seen recently. You can query by plant list, so not just one plant, but I'm interested in these 15, 20, 30, however many plants you want to focus on. Okay, the planting guide. So from the homepage, and this I'm talking about because so many of you were asking about garden plants and planting in your garden. So how does it work? You put in a location and it gives you a list of the native plants that would grow well there. To find matching plants, the Calflora algorithm matches plant tolerances, like what can it tolerate in terms of heat, in terms of elevation. The plant tolerances with location values of the following factors: elevation, all of these climate factors, including annual precipitation, wet months, temperature range, etc. Soil, so we have maximum salinity, pH minimum, pH maximum, minimum depth and calcium carbonate. Ecoregion, which comes from the EPA, has the plant been observed growing wild in the containing ecoregion? And then county, has it been observed growing wild in the county? So I'm going to share my screen with you. All right, so you should see Chrome on the Calflora homepage and no longer my PowerPoint. Can someone let me know if that's true? Either in the chat or out loud?
True, yeah, we see
it's
it.
True. Okay,
yeah.
Great. Thanks, Eddie. All right, zoomed in a little bit more. Here we are on the calflora.org homepage. My gracious, I have 7 notifications, which I'm going to look at later. Those are people commenting on my records and saying, that's beautiful. They might be saying, that's not right, or that's beautiful, or whatever it is that they want to say, but I do need to check on those a little bit later. And from the homepage, when you're signed in as you, you can use Calflora not signed in, you can use it anonymously, but if you're signed in, you can go to links like My Calflora, which is everything that's customized for you, My Observations, Add Observations, which you cannot do anonymously. Eddie and Noreen were asking about the phone applications for Android and iPhone earlier. Those are linked here to add data to the database. And if you do want to come tomorrow on the hike and use the app, I would encourage that. I don't really love troubleshooting. If you haven't signed, just please make sure you're signed into the app. I'll just ask that, because then we don't have to, okay, what's your password? Okay, password reset, all that stuff. Donate, of course, that's important. About Calflora, our news, search for plants, observation search, what grows here, great places, the planting guide, that's what I'm about to go into right now, e-veg guide, weed manager, which is about managing invasive plants. And then please contact us with any questions and comments that you have. So, planting guide. Now, San Francisco, as you know, is tricky because of the dunes and the fact that it's built on top of a lot of dunes. So let's just see. Okay, where do you guys want to plant in San Francisco? So we can just see what kind of results we get.
Heron's Head Park.
Which park? Heron's Head. Oh yeah, where we were, right? There it is. Okay, let's just see. That's really close to the bay, so I hope the results are somewhat realistic. All right, Heron's Head Park. You know, since I mentioned layers, let's just turn on layers. This is a relatively new park, but let's see if it's in, I mentioned you can look by county. Here's our protected area layer, my favorite chapter, Jepson region, zip code. You can look climate and soil factors. So let's look at protected areas. Yeah, it is actually in there. And I'm going to make them thick color. Okay. Let's back out so you can see more. Now, all these pastel areas are protected areas. And I know Heron's Head is relatively new, but it's still in here, so it can't be that new. And when you click on it, it says Heron's Head Park down here. So you know, okay, I'm in the right place. Now, under criteria, I'd say that's probably low water. What do you think, Eddie?
Yes, it's not
It's
irrigated.
definitely not riparian, and it's not very shady. So let's check for, let's add a lot of constraints for our first brush, and then we can change. Let's say we only want wild plants that grow in the same ecoregion, in the same county, within 10 miles, using soil factors, omitting plants at the edge of their tolerances, oops, and that are easy to establish. So that's a lot of constraints. One plant, that was too many constraints. Let's see what the one is. Oh. All right, so let's do fewer constraints and see if what we might get. 45, okay, that's more realistic. I'm gonna fold up the map and just scroll through these. Now, if there's something that you wonder, now how did that get on the list? Oh, here we have the bloom wheel and then whether it's a pollinator or not, pollinator friendly. If you're wondering, how did this fiddleneck get here? You can look at the taxon report page. You can go to CNPLX, the California Native Plant Link Exchange, mouthful to, I should call it that, to find out where you can buy it. Stover Seed Company in LA. And you can go to location suitability. If you question fiddleneck and say, nah, I don't really think that it makes sense that it's on the list here. Let's see why it showed up on our list. So here are the plant tolerances in this left column, what it can tolerate. So up to 2280 meters, between 8 and 67 inches in precip per year. And then the location value. So Heron's Head specifically has 1 meter of elevation, maybe more like half. Wonder if it didn't fully load yet because it's not showing precip for that location. Wet season 5 months, temperature range, soil, all these factors showing why it showed up. And then the wild observations we have, 1924. Wow, that was a long time ago on Mount Davidson, where we're going to go tomorrow. So there was one. Do you think we're good? Yeah. Do you think it shows? Do you think it grows there still? And 1957. So those are pretty old. So, but that doesn't mean that they weren't there then. It just means that nobody's seen it more recently. And Presidio, there's a few. Oh, that's recent. Okay. Oh yeah, they're the real deal. That's real. So that probably was there. Okay, so that is the list of what would grow well if you were doing a restoration site, for instance, at Heron's Head Park. And back to Debbie's question about the difference between Calflora and Calscape. Calflora mostly focuses on wild plants. We do have this planting guide to help with gardens and restoration areas. And Calscape is meant for a guide for planting, gardens and restoration areas. Calscape pulls from CCH1 data, which are older than CCH2 data, and Calflora pulls from CCH2 and then other sources as well. So it's really interesting to compare if you looked at Heron's Head in Calscape compared to Heron's Head in Calflora planting guide, is the list of 45 species. How similar is it? How different is it? And then if you wanted to limit it a little bit more down, add easy to establish 25 plants. Compare that to Calscape. If you have questions about these results, the best way to let us know is to copy and paste the URL. So this URL, this link up here that I'm highlighting in blue, is identical for you, for me, for anybody you share it with. So if you have questions or if you want to share this with someone, take that URL and send it. And also under tools, you can send this as an email, download a spreadsheet, and go to what grows here in this ecoregion. There's also a video if you're not sure how to use the planting guide or you want a little refresher, and then a help page. Any questions about the planting guide? You can also type in an address here if you want to look at a specific address or cross street to see what would grow well there. So any questions about the planting guide?
I have one.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the so the records can be from long ago, or are they like there's a current county list that has just been released that you know is pretty up to date on the 507 native species that are known to be extant in San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
Where's is this coming from all just records for all time, or are they, how up to date is it?
That's a great question, Eddie. This is coming from all Calflora data. And if you want to know where Calflora data come from, those really old ones were coming from CCH2. Those are specimens that are, you know, actually exist in an herbaria somewhere in the state. We have a list of all of our data sets, about observation data sets. So data sets in Calflora. The Calflora database aggregates plant observations from numerous sources and data sets. This list is the metadata for these data sets. Audubon Canyon Ranch, summary, BLM, checklists and surveys, CDFA, Fedge maps from CNPS, East Bay CNPS, Dean Taylor, EDD maps, iNaturalist, Harvard, Marin Municipal Body, like on and on and on. And then if you're interested in one of these, you can click on it and learn more. So you were just saying there's a list of, there's like a county list of 500. What was it? 500, how many?
507. Well, it
507.
also has all of the non-native species, and it, you know, it's based on historical research, and it's been developed over about a 20-year period by a biologist that is he's retired from our board, but he's still active and keeping the list up.
Who is that?
Mike Wood Biological.
Oh yeah, I know that name.
Anyway, I mean, you know, I mean, he'd be happy to share the list. If
that would be great, that we could add that as a survey. That would be excellent. Here I went to the homepage and then to news, and we have this new link from this month to county level floras. Every county in the state has a digital flora here. And if you go to San Francisco County, we show 844. So those 507 are probably incorporated in this, but it would still be useful to see what Mike Wood's list shows. And if you're wondering about the difference, 844 minus 507 is 337. What are those species? You know, this does include non-natives, invasives also. This includes, when I was showing you the list of data sources, so the data from all those data sources, and then the planting guide pulls from that. So if you want to know where a species is and why it's showing up, oh my gracious, it's a lot of euro. Here we go. So here are, for yarrow in San Francisco County, let's look at our legend. We have, leave that a little bit too big. Simple points, purple. Obscured, if you enter a rare plant and you don't want people to know the exact location, you can obscure the location, and that's what that blue square is. Lines or polygons are in pink. This is only for yarrow, so there's really no reason to obscure it. So that's why these blue circles are specimens here. There's no quads because that's mostly, the yellow quad is for rare plants and the red quad is for invasive plants. Potential habitat, 0 plants, questionable. So anyway, that's the legend for this species, and that's where, so all those data sources combined, aggregated, are how we generate these planting guide lists. Is that, oh, thank you, Robert, for that link. Does that help? Does that answer your question, Eddie?
Yes, it does. Yeah,
okay.
no, that's very cool. We can do a stare and compare on that.
Awesome. All right, any other planting guide questions? Okay, and I think I'm going to go back to, from current slide. All right, you see my
there
slide?
are a few questions that are building up in the Q&A, by the
Oh,
way.
they are. They're not in the chat. Oh, there's a different Q&A. I'm not looking in the right
Yeah.
place then. Oh yeah, can you walk through how to get the wet flowerings here list you just mentioned? Yes. Let me just do that. All right, so the first question from Susan is walk through the how to get to the wet flowering here list that I mentioned. So that was, I try and always start from the home page just to give you a basis. From the home page, I think Susan's referring to when I went to Sunol. I went to what grows here. And then I turned on my favorite layer, protected areas. And then found Sunol. And I clicked on it and just kind of confirmed down here, yes, Sunol Regional Wilderness. So in that selected background, and then under plant filter, and Susan, this is a great question, and it's actually the next thing that it's a good segue into my next section, which is about how to use what grows here. So here's one way. There's many ways to use all these applications, but here's one way to use what grows here. I want to know about anything, whether it's rare, native, non-native, or Calypsy listed, any duration, any life form, blooming in January. And I'm not, if you had a subset of plants you were interested in, you could create a plant list and use that here. I have a lot of plant lists in Calflora, but I'm just not going to use that right now. And you can have your results include photos or simple in text if you want to export it into Excel, order by scientific name, by record count, or by family. Location quality, if you're going to be trying to revisit some of these locations, you don't want to be looking at low or medium location quality because you might just end up on a wild goose chase. But in this case, I'm not so worried about that. So let's go ahead and say search. 30 plants. Let's fold up the map, fold up criteria, and just scroll through what's blooming in Sunol right now. I did see manzanita. I did see coyote brush. I'm sure I saw mustard. Don't remember the shepherd's purse. Draba, I didn't see that. I should have looked for that better. Eriogonum, yep, saw that. Eucalyptus, of course. Coffee berry, of course. Another mustard. Oxalis. Oh, I missed the Indian Warrior. Wow, I didn't actually pay attention to looking for that one. Mistletoe, Lady's Tobacco. And if you want to know where we of course didn't hike all of Sunol, it's huge. So where would I look if I wanted to find ribes? That's pretty too, but let's look at this Indian Warrior pedicularis, fold down the map. There's one record. I'm going to choose it since it's kind of reddish when it blooms. I'll just say display point. And now let's just see whose this is and if it's okay. So this is a medium location quality, so probably not exactly here where it is on the map. It's from East Bay Regional Park District staff from 1995. So that's interesting. I would love to find it and add more precise locations. And this does also pull from iNaturalist. So if someone in iNaturalist had seen any of these species here and you clicked, like, let's look up mistletoe. Let's make mistletoe green. Here we go, iNaturalist, Clem. So that is a high location quality. It's probably almost exactly where Clem says it is right here. Oh. And that's not where we were. So Susan, does that answer your question about what's blooming now and how to do that and what grows here? Okay, and then George was asking for the layer function. That's here, George. You can click on the different layers here. And then Susan asked again, can you limit the results to the county list? Well, the county list, I think what you're referring to, Susan, is from the homepage in news. We have this county level, and you can look at this. We already looked at San Francisco, but let's look at it again. This list here, and you could say, you know what, I am not so interested in anything that's not rare. So let's only look for what's rare in San Francisco County. There's 25, wow.
Cynthia, doesn't it
Yes.
already limit to the county list or what you have in the database? So
It kind of depends on what Susan means exactly. It pulls from this list of 25 rare plants. These could come from surveys, from checklists, from Mike Wood's San Francisco survey, if it's in Calflora already, which it may or may not be. iNaturalist, Calflora observations made yesterday by your chapter members. It pulls from everything. So if you, does that answer your question? To the Heron's Head. Susan was referring to the Heron's Head search results, including only plants from San Francisco County. Yeah, so okay, so she's saying why, when we were looking at Heron's Head, that was in the planting guide, and maybe there was a specific species that you were wondering about, why did it show up? Yes, you can limit it to, if you want to use the planting guide and limit it to only the county, here we are at the homepage, go to the planting guide, click where to start, and here this is for you, George. I'm going to open up layers, turn on my favorite layer, go to Heron's Head. If it doesn't exist in the protected areas, you can also draw a this is for points, but in other applications, you can draw a polygon around the area. Okay, so, and Susan's question was, I want to know only plants that grow, and I want my results to include only plants that grow in San Francisco County. Then you would check this in the same county. Or you can uncheck it if you want within 10 miles. I mean, San Francisco is a special example because it's this, peninsula, and if you say within 10 miles, that could include the East Bay, and some of them are in. So it just depends on what exactly you're looking for. Okay, so we went over what's blooming in what grows here. There are other ways to use what grows here. Let's go there again, what grows here. You can say, I want to know what rare plants grow. Let's go back to George's question. What rare plants grow? Protected areas. All right, but not in all of Yosemite. In just this southern part that I'm going to go to. So I'm going to draw a polygon, start drawing around North Wawona. Okay, stop drawing. So what rare plants grow in this very southern part of Yosemite? So I'm going to say in polygon, not in selected background, because if I said in selected background, that would be all of Yosemite. How many do you think we're going to get? 21 in that tiny polygon. Wow. 21 plants. Here they are. And then again, if you wanted to see where exactly somebody saw them, you could display them here. And if you wanted to export, this is taking it to the next level, and I'm only going to go into this for one minute because it's maybe a bit much for those of you who are new to Calflora. But if you want to have these locations in the app, so you can go and revisit them and look at the map, and you see your blue dot on Observer Pro showing where you are, and then the blue or whatever color dots for other plants that you want to go find again. You go to Tools, Observation Search, and this is all the observations. We had 25 rare plant species in our polygon and 45 observations of those species. And to get these 45 to show up on your phone, you go to Tools, you can download the results, you can create a photo essay, you can download them as CSV, CSV Excel, JSON, GeoJSON shapefile, save search, save it as South Yosemite Rare, and then you can set up an email alert if you want to be alerted whenever there's a rare plant growing in the southern part of Yosemite, and or load historical records onto Observer Pro. And you have to be signed in to do this, otherwise it doesn't know who you are, it doesn't know your app, it doesn't know how to connect it to you. But once you're signed in on the app as you, and you save your search here, you can load it into Observer Pro and go revisit those observations. Okay, so the planting guide screen share. And then we did talk about what grows here. Okay, iNaturalist is the last thing I wanted to get to. I know it's getting late, so it's the very final thing. And then your questions after that. For iNaturalist, I know I have Eddie's handle, so we'll just start with that. Add observations. There's a lot of ways to add observations to Calflora. Here's a few of them. Photo upload using the apps. They're both linked here. Adding a survey, which is like, for instance, Mike Wood's survey for San Francisco, all 507 species. Plant observation entry is one at a time, one observation at a time. Add records from iNaturalist. We do get a data pull from iNaturalist automatically. So you don't have to do anything to get iNaturalist observations into Calflora. You can opt to see them or not. For instance, in observation search, you can turn off iNaturalist if you don't want to see those. You can turn off specimens if you don't want to see those, and then redo your search. But there are some we filter out. And if you want to make sure that we're not filtering out something of Eddie's, because his stuff is good, Eddie Bartley, search. And if anybody else wants to type their handle into the Q&A, feel free. Their iNaturalist handle. "117 of Eddie's records from iNaturalist are not yet in Calflora." Man, he gets around. Look at all that. He's been all over the place. So let's just look at, you can either fold up the map and scroll through the results this way. You can sort them by plant alphabetically, or I want to know what he saw down in San Diego. So let's just look what he saw in San Diego that did not get pulled into Calflora. Oh, Borrego Springs. That sounds lovely. Phacelia. Ooh la la. All right. Now, let's look at this detail. Do you think he correctly ID'd this Phacelia? What do you guys think? Oh, it's hard to tell. It's just one photo. Eddie, you pretty sure about that?
It's research grade.
Yeah, so we only get, one of the filters is that everything that comes into Calflora has to be research grade kind of first. That's our first cutoff. And then there's other cutoffs after that. So who, E. Efmer? CW Barrows? Did they know
Yeah, so I got it down to Facilia,
Yeah.
but being I'm not from Borrego Springs,
Uh-huh.
I'll let experts weigh in, and two of them believed it to be distant Facilia. So
And are they knowledgeable experts?
yeah,
Okay.
I think so. Yeah, the
All
CW Barrows definitely is.
Okay, so then if we wanted to, and I do now that Eddie's convinced me, I could click here to add this to Calflora. Now it's in Calflora. That's the same for all of these observations. Let's see what else he found down there. Diplicus, ooh la la. Okay, so now let's just take this species and not add it right this second, but I want to not just look at Eddie's handle, but look at this Diplicus. Oh, there's a type ahead. So once you start typing, you don't have to know how to spell these scientific names when you're using Calflora. You just start typing and then you choose from the drop down. So let's say in map area, because I know there's at least one Eddie's, but maybe there's more in the area that weren't yet pulled in. And just check and see. Oh, there's a lot. 96. Wow. All right, so this is how, if I wanted to pull in Eddie's or anybody else's Diplicus, we could. That's a nice photo. But let's be loyal to Eddie. Let's find his. Let's see. Find Eddie. There we go, Eddie. Okay. So Eddie, is that okay with you?
Of course.
Okay, add to Calflora. Done. All right, so now this brings us to the questions part of my presentation. Thank you for having me again. It's been a pleasure. And what other questions do you have? Nobody, really?
Susan shared her her iNat handle.
Oh, I guess I have to scroll down here. I missed that. Oh, right. It's back over in the chat. Okay. Okay, Susan, we're going to look at your iNat handle. And if your Creative Commons license, like Noreen's Creative Commons license is not set so that Calflora can have her records. So if we don't find anything, it just means you should check your license in iNaturalist and then you'll see your results here. Oh yeah, here's a set so that we are allowed to take them. Wow. Of all of Susan's records, is there only one Susan here tonight? Am I being confusing by referring to Susan without a last name? Mullaney, Susan Mullaney. Okay. Of all of Susan Mullaney's records in iNaturalist, the plants in California in iNaturalist, these ones, wow, these ones are not yet in Calflora. All from Yerba Buena Island. What is this? Oh, another Facilia. What do you know? Let's look at that more closely. Detail. So Susan, how sure, oh, it was a BioBlitz. Okay, that explains it. How sure are you about, oh, Peter Brasto. Okay, I trust him. So let's go ahead and take this Facilia in. It was probably our density filter that trimmed that out of the original filter. And there's Susan's. Any questions about that, Susan, or anybody else?
Why you trust Peter Brasto or what?
He might be on the line. Peter, you want to defend yourself? He's amazing. I think he's amazing. He's really involved in what's going on with Yerba Buena right now. And so I don't know, he seems knowledgeable. I know him.
Yeah. No,
I guess
he signed up for the field trip tomorrow. I hope he can.
Oh, good. Oh, great.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. All right. Well, if you do come up with questions, as I said, take your URL that you have a question about, if there is, when that applies, and go to the homepage, calflora.org, and go to Contact Calflora, and here's our email address. Please email us. That goes to a group of staff here, and the one who knows how to answer your question best will write back. And thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be here.
There are a couple more questions, by the way. Now,
Oh,
in the
now people
Q&A,
are starting to write them in, huh?
they've got you jumping back and forth here.
Okay, can you search for all plants that support a specific butterfly? Asks Jean. That's a great question. No, you cannot. George says, I would love to learn what I could see during the hike ahead of time. Oh, that's a good idea. Let's go to what grows here. Fresh. All right, let's see if, what are we going to see tomorrow? I don't know. What do you guys think we're going to see tomorrow before we officially check? Any guesses?
Red elderberry.
Red elderberry.
We're going to see Nootka reedgrass.
Nootka reedgrass. And we're meeting at the top at noon. Is that right?
Yes, at the cross.
At the cross.
Everybody's on
Okay.
here that, yeah. So that it's a 10-minute walk from Myra Street.
And this is the parking area down here?
Let me look. Yes.
Okay,
Myra,
so we're going to
Myra and Lansdale.
All right, so we park here and then we're going to walk up this way. And is the cross here? I don't know.
Yes, it is.
Okay. So
It's
go
the
ahead.
Mount Davidson cross.
Okay, I've clicked on Mount Davidson and I'm going to indicate in my selected background, so not in the map area, but in all of Mount Davidson. George, do you want to know what, well, I kind of just want to know what native plants we're going to see. What do you want to see, George? You should let me know. 101. Well, let's see what's blooming tomorrow. 3 things blooming tomorrow that are native. Coyote brush, Monterey pine, and a ribes. All right, what about blooming in February?
So the Monterey pine is not technically native.
Native, yeah, and that's tricky because it's kind of a statewide. Is it native statewide or is it not native statewide? So that's
It's only native to Monterey County.
Yeah.
It's one of the most widely distributed trees in the world.
Yes. Yes. So here's some things that will be blooming soon. I said, what is native that's going to be blooming in February in the selected background? So it's a little premature because it's only going to be January 14th, but let's just, some of this we might actually see.
So Cynthia, that's a good point though. You know, that we see species coming up that are shown as native, but they're not. Is there any way to filter that out, or is it just like it's gonna just say native because it's native to California, or what is that determining
Well,
criteria?
yeah, it's native to California. So this is something like Monterey pine is an exception. Most plants are native to California or not native to California. There's a few, very few, we just stumbled upon one that is native to a specific county or very specific place. And not, I mean, can you think of any other examples? There must be more.
Yeah, there's lots. I mean,
Yeah.
Monterey cypress is another one.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, I mean, a problem that we have here locally is that you know, we've lost almost all of our native species here. I mean, the ones that are truly native to San Francisco. So it's a sensitive topic.
Yeah.
for you know, the people that are trying to bring back what's called the Franciscan bioregion here.
Yeah.
They're very, you know, all of these other plants that are regionally native, where they're crowding out plants that, you know, that are they're either crowding out or they're in place, put in place of plants that were, you know, were there. And since we've lost over 200 species here, you know, our primary, you know, mission is to try and restore as practically as we can the plants that were truly from the Franciscan bioregion.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, when people are looking things up, and if it says native, well, that's tricky in California since there's so many, there's 6,000 endemic species, or, there's 30% of the plants here are endemic but often to a very small area.
Yeah, that's a
Anyway,
good point. No, that's a very good point. So this is a list of some things that we might see that might be blooming tomorrow. And I hope to see you all tomorrow. And thank you very much. Here, I'll stop sharing my screen.
well, that was really fascinating and
Yeah,
a
thanks.
much deeper look than I've had.
Good. I'm glad
And
to hear it.
definitely inspired me to explore some more.
Good. Yes.
Really
Well, thank you very
appreciate
much.
you're visiting us and showing us all about Calflora.
Yes. Thank you, Eddie.
And
I'll
thanks
see you
everybody
tomorrow.
for letting us into your homes tonight, and we'll see some of you over on Mount Davidson tomorrow.
Okay. Sounds
Catch us
good.
next week for our next speaker program.
Next month.
Next month. I mean, not next. Whatever that is. All right. Thanks so much.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.